Good afternoon, Jada. How are you today?
I'm good, Ben. Thank you very much. And you?
Yeah, it's really nice of you to take the time to join us again. A lot of my listeners and my friends on Facebook are really excited that we're going to be talking today because I've been telling people we're going to focus on fat loss today. Now, the way this started out, a couple of weeks ago, I said, would you do an interview with me and would you teach us about how to lose fat, but also without sacrificing muscle? We want to keep gaining muscle, but we want to cut down so that we can see the muscle definition. And you said that, yeah, that would be great. But since then, a couple of my female friends have been asking me questions. They want to know, they want to lose some fat, but they want a nice ass and nice hips. But you know what girls are like? They're afraid of getting too muscly. They don't want to go near the weights because they don't want to look muscly. But then they don't want to be fat, but then they want to have a nice shape. And a lot of them really don't know how to achieve what they want to achieve. So I was hoping we could cover all these issues today. Is that all right?
Yeah, sure. Okay. Do you want me to start?
Yeah, you can start. Yeah,
Okay.
kick it off.
Right. Okay. Well, the first thing people need to really bear in mind is that losing body fat to the levels which people want to attain, which is very low percentages, so that they can show their muscle definition. To do that, you have to work really hard. Okay, it's like building muscle. You have to work really hard to build muscle. But there's no point, it's not just hard work, it's doing the right hard work. Okay, so for a woman that wants to kind of get rid of that last bit of what would be termed stubborn body fat but really doesn't want to shift, she's going to have to pull out all of the stops when it comes to how she trains. So doing the traditional aerobics classes is really not the most efficient way to do it. In fact, it's not really going to do it for her.
Right.
So if a man's been weight training and he's built some strength and then he switches to like a bodybuilding style training and then he adds in some aggressive cardio and then adds in some low level cardio, he's hitting the fat burning and the hormone production at different levels, because what most of it is down to is not just restricting calories but actually getting your hormones working for you as opposed to against you. Because what you must remember is when you start reducing food down and you start dieting, as people do, to lose fat, it doesn't take very long at all before your body thinks it's starving. And you must remember that your body has evolved through a long period of time not knowing when its next meal was going to come.
Yeah.
So it loves to store body fat and it doesn't like to lose it. So if you chuck it back into survival mode, which can happen when you start reducing your calories pretty quickly, say goodbye to losing a lot of body fat naturally.
So I've got a friend, just for an example, she wants to lose a little bit of body fat, and she's doing like 2 hours of running and cardio trying to burn calories. Now, is she doing the right thing?
Well, 2 hours of cardio, after about 45 minutes of cardio, you're going to start releasing cortisol. Cortisol is one of those hormones that when you're dieting, you want to try and lower as opposed to raise. And so it's almost like her body's going into like a stress survival mode. So cortisol is going to rise pretty high. What cortisol is going to do, that's basically going to put a stop on fat loss.
Right, so that's not going to be effective.
It's not effective, no.
Now, just now, you mentioned triggering the hormones and stuff that's going to trigger the metabolism to make us burn fat. So just expand on that, if you don't mind.
Okay. It's a combination of getting your fat-burning hormones going and the hormones that actually stop you from losing fat, lowering those. The main one that most people probably know about is insulin. So when insulin is present, you're not going to lose body fat. Your body's not going to use body fat for fuel. Now, this is where the low GI diet comes in. And it's called the low GI diet, but really, if you want to lose body fat and if you want to be healthy, your diet should be low GI anyway. Do you want me to explain what that means, basically?
Yeah.
Okay, food, or specifically carbohydrates, when they enter the body, they get broken down at a certain speed, at a certain rate. The quicker they get broken down, and the more simple the sugars in them, the more blood sugar rises and the quicker it rises, okay? In response to blood sugar rising, your body increases insulin. Insulin's job is to get that blood sugar and get it out of the blood. So it's only got several places it can go. It can go into your liver, it can go into your muscle stores if you've drained your muscles and you've used your muscles, or it can go into body fat. Okay, but in the meantime, while insulin is present in the blood, you're not going to be using any body fat for fuel because it's just going to stop that mechanism. It's like the opposite direction. So by eating foods that don't cause a large increase in insulin, you're then in a much better position to give yourself chance to start losing body fat. Does that make sense?
Yeah, hang on. Let me just get this clear in my mind. So if we're eating sugary, refined carbohydrates like chocolate and stuff, that's going to spike the insulin, and the body's going to store that as fat. So sugar turns straight to fat.
Well, sugar can turn to fat very quickly. And it obviously depends on the amount. If you have one tiny little chocolate, that's a tiny amount of sugar. It's not really going to do much. But if you eat a whole chocolate bar, then it's a large amount, and that's going to cause a problem. But the golden rule is, if you want to lose body fat, you have to keep your diet, the whole diet, low on the GI scale. You can go on the internet, type in GI list, GI guide, and you can get a list of all the foods, and you can start to educate yourself on what's going to spike your insulin and what's going to keep your insulin levels stable.
Yeah, I see.
So that's hormone number one. That hormone, that's a biggie. That
Right.
one.
So there's more.
Yeah. Well, there's cortisol, which is a hormone that stops you from losing body fat, which I mentioned a minute ago,
That's the
and
stress
that's
one, right?
stress hormone. Yeah. Which is why long duration stuff at medium intensity, although you might be sweating and you might be panting and you might feel like you've had a good workout, you've actually put your body in a lot of stress, and you're going to release a lot of cortisol. And these hormones, they don't just get released, come into your bloodstream, and then disappear again. They can stay in your bloodstream for hours, and it all depends on how much you release. So if you eat a meal and you get a huge insulin spike, that insulin is going to be present in your body for quite a long time before it slowly dissipates.
Yeah. So this is the problem when people try and starve themselves and eat less. It actually puts the body into a state of stress, and the cortisol goes up. Is that right?
That's right. That's right.
So eating
Yeah.
less or starving yourself is the wrong thing to do because that's going to
It's the
trigger.
worst thing you can do. I mean, what happens, obviously, if you're going to really drastically cut the amount of food or calories down and you're going to do some exercise, there's going to be such a deficit that you will lose weight, but you will lose a lot of muscle and you will lose a lot of fat. In the meantime, your metabolism is going to be messed up. And this is why when people, they yo-yo, they crash diet and then they yo-yo. It's the worst thing for your health. I mean, what I would recommend for listeners is, we're talking about fat loss, but that's a broad term, because if you're overweight, just cleaning up your diet and starting to exercise, starting to go to the gym is going to cause fat loss. So now we're going to go down to like the more specific people that are already at 15, 20% and already reasonably lean but want to go that bit lower. That's when you really have to pull out all of the stops and make sure that you're training correctly. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make right. Let me just recap because I like to clarify in my own mind. So when we have refined sugars, that spikes the insulin, and the trouble is that'll turn it. That'll take it from the blood and turn it into
Don't eat
fat.
biscuits.
Yeah, don't eat biscuits. So we don't want the sugar because that goes to fat. We don't want to starve ourselves or put ourselves through too much stressful, long workouts because that's going to stress the body. Then cortisol rises, and that's like the opposite of what we want because that's going to start breaking down muscle, and
that's right.
The body will start to conserve energy and conserve fat, and that's just the opposite. So those are the opposite things of what we want. Is there any other kind of hormones that we don't want?
Yeah. There's another hormone called leptin.
Right.
Okay, and this is produced predominantly by your fat cells. It's like it kind of tells your body when you're losing body fat. So when you go on a diet and you start losing body fat, after about 5, 6, 7 days, your leptin levels go down by half, which then causes the rest of your metabolism to go down.
Oh, hold on a second, you lost me there. Just run that past me again.
All right, there's a hormone called leptin.
Right.
Leptin is responsible for telling your body when you're losing body fat.
Right.
Now remember, when you're losing body fat, you're normally, because of survival and evolution, that's not a good thing. Your body's going to want to know that so that it can go and find more food.
Right.
Okay, so you release leptin when you start losing body fat.
Okay.
So when you go on a calorie restricted diet, leptin levels start to go down quite rapidly. By the end of the week, they're going to be halfway down to what they normally are. That tells the rest of the body we're losing body fat. Can we slow everything down because we don't want to lose it quite so quickly?
Okay. Oh, right. This is new to. I haven't heard of that one before.
It's discovered about 15 years ago, so it's relatively new
Oh,
anyway.
right. So, what does that mean in terms of our exercise routine then? Like, what? How do we?
Well, this is why when people get down to like the really low body fats, the diets work really, really well for most people. And you've got to remember, everybody's body, although they generally work the same, everybody's body is slightly different to different degrees. But most people respond really well to what's called a carb cycling diet, which is where some days they have low carbs, higher protein, higher fat. Next day they'll have the same sort of protein and fat and a little bit more carb, and then a couple of days later they'll have a high carb day, and they'll even have some sugary carbs in it to get the leptin levels back up because leptin goes back up once your body senses that it's having a good feed. It senses that it's having a good feed when its insulin levels are being spiked, and this is known as a cheat day. So you may have heard of diets say, well, you have a cheat day at the end of the week,
Oh,
and
wow.
the cheat day is very beneficial for getting leptin levels back up, which gets your whole metabolism going faster again.
Oh, right. So okay, I'm kind of understanding it. So if you're losing body fat too fast, the body is gonna, it's almost like a warning signal. The
Mm,
leptin drops and it says, hang on a second, this could be a problem. And then
mm,
it slows the metabolism down for survival purposes.
mm,
And
mm.
so we kind of trick it a little bit.
hmm
We give
One
it,
day, give it one day, 20, the whole day. And the idea of a cheat day is not to pig out so that you're force feeding yourself with crap, but you're just eating treat foods, which are calorie dense foods that you wouldn't normally eat on a diet, getting your insulin level popped up throughout the day. After a day's worth of feeding like that, you've had enough for your body to go, right, we're not starving anymore. Let's get leptin levels back up. Let's get the metabolism going back to
oh,
normal.
I see. So
And then
the,
the next day back on your clean diet. And generally what you do on the day after a cheat day is you'll have like zero carbs or very low carbs but high protein, because what you if you remember this, high protein, high fat, low carb.
hmm.
If you're going to go higher carb, then you can go lower protein and you've got to go lower fat. So if you remember that seesaw when you're eating, so what you want to do after a cheat day, you've had a lot of carbs, a lot of sugar, a lot of glycogen restoration. You want to go low carb, high protein, sort of good quality fats, and then the next day maybe a little bit more carbs. Next day maybe a little bit more carbs, and then keep it low until that cheat day again at the end of the week. And that's like called a carb cycling diet, and they work very very well because it's helping your hormones work properly.
Oh, I see. Now, can that be effective for anyone, or is that just appropriate for bodybuilders and strength trainers that are doing very heavy lifting?
That will be appropriate for anyone. I mean, the difference is a bodybuilder. We know about the two types of training: strength training and bodybuilding. Bodybuilding or high volume training drastically drains the muscles of glycogen, which is stored carbohydrate. The benefit of bodybuilding is that it releases huge amounts of growth hormone. Now, growth hormone is a fat burning hormone. The more growth hormone you produce, the more fat you're going to burn. So we want lots of growth hormone. So for a normal person that isn't training, yeah, that carb cycling will work, but they're not really using many carbs anyway.
Hmm.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So it depends where they are. A normal person, if they're seriously overweight, then a carb cycling diet is going to help the fat come off. But it's not going to make them have a six pack because you need to combine both training and diet.
Right. So I think what we're coming on to now, what you're saying is we need to do weight training as well in order to trigger the growth hormone and to help the metabolism as well. Yeah.
Testosterone is another very powerful fat burning hormone. Growth hormone and testosterone, both powerful fat burners, both preserve muscle.
They
So
preserve muscle.
yeah, we want to increase those hormones. We want to decrease insulin and cortisol. Okay,
Yeah.
so we've got two lots of hormones here, doing two lots of different things. We want to decrease these ones and
Ah,
increase.
yeah. So, right. Hang on, hold on a second. Let me just recap again. So, the insulin and the cortisol and what was it, leptin?
Leptin, yeah.
Those things are kind of pulling in one direction, almost they're kind of trying to decrease our metabolism if we do it wrong, and then we've got the growth hormone and testosterone. They're sort of pulling in the other direction,
Yeah.
kind of increasing our metabolism and
Mhm.
making us more right. Okay, I'm with you so far. I think.
Good,
Now,
good, good.
right now for the women, they want a nice ass, they want nice thighs. Do
Mm.
they need to lift weights? Is that the way they're going to do that in order to get the shape?
Well, they must understand, the women listening to this, there's a difference between lifting weights and doing strength training, which women can do, and that you'll get a lean, beautiful body doing that, and doing what would be termed bodybuilding movements, which will be very, very light weights, and you're just pumping the muscle and you're just draining the muscle full of energy. And for a woman, if a woman does that, that's going to help with her growth hormone. Even though women don't produce nowhere near as much testosterone as a man, they will start to produce a bit more testosterone, which will give them a lot of a harder look as opposed to a soft, flabby look. It will start to make their body much harder.
Yeah. Now, look, girls are always terrified. They don't want to get too muscly. So, really, is that a problem, or are they just?
It's such a shame, the way what most people believe, through the general public perception, is influenced by media's kind of influence over a period of time. And we're starting to get a little bit of a shift now. More women are starting to kind of realize that the old paradigm that if you touch weights, you're going to look like one of these women, bloke men, women things. Now, they must remember that professional bodybuilders, amateur bodybuilders, unless they're natural, unless they state that they're natural, they're going to be taking lots of drugs. They're going to be taking steroids. They're going to be taking injectable testosterones. So if they've seen a woman that looks like a man, it's because that woman technically is a man, because they're injecting huge amounts of male hormones into them.
Right. In other
So
words, girls
uh,
don't need to worry about
the
it.
girls, I've never seen a natural bodybuilder woman that actually looks anything like a man. If anything, they're going to look up the most like one of those fantasy Conan women. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Which
toned
for
and
me, I think is very sexy. But
yeah. Now, there's something I'm confused about. Just now, you said there's like bodybuilding, which is higher rep type of stuff, and then there's strength training, which is very heavy weights and lower reps. Now, something I don't understand: which one of those is going to trigger the good hormones that we want? The growth
okay,
hormone and testosterone.
strength training is going to trigger testosterone, but not as much growth hormone.
Yeah.
But the thing is, with strength training, you're tearing down deep muscle tissue, and it requires such a lot of metabolic energy to rebuild. Your appetite generally goes up when strength training. If you try and restrict calories when you're recovering from strength training, you're going to compromise your recovery,
Ah,
because you're tearing down. So you need those calories when you respond. I won't go into those details,
yeah.
but just it's not that strength training is bad. You need to maintain your strength. The advice is, if you're dieting and you're to the level where you want to get your six pack through and you want to get good muscle definition, your focus should be on maintaining the strength that you've built.
Right.
And maintaining the strength that you built when you're cutting your food down and you're dieting is as hard as building the strength in the first place.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what the best strategy would be to predominantly do bodybuilding,
Right.
and occasionally just maintain your strength levels by just doing a little bit of strength training, but not as much,
Oh,
because strength training, you need those calories. Your appetite's going to be higher anyway.
right. Okay, let me see if I understand. So when we're strength training, that means really heavy. That's the type of stuff I've been doing. Not everybody is interested in doing that. Very
Mm,
heavy, maybe deadlifts, maybe just a couple of reps,
mm.
and that's really tearing down the muscle fiber, and that requires a lot of food in order to rebuild those
Mhm.
fibers. And so,
Your appetite's just going to be really high anyway, training like that.
yeah, and so it's going to be difficult to cut body fat whilst also doing that. Is
Yeah,
that what you're
yeah,
saying?
yeah, yeah, yeah. You won't be able to get stronger if you train like that and dieted. Like if you dieted now and you did some few little tricks and you changed a few things and manipulated a few things and you continued strength training, yeah, you can lose body fat and you can go down. It's just not the easiest way to do it.
Oh, I see. So if
And it would be hard to maintain your strength. You'd be maintaining your strength, not getting stronger.
I'm with you. So if I was eating really clean, like just salad and avocados and, cucumber and celery, it would be very difficult for my body to recover from very heavy training. Is that
It would be hard. Yeah, yeah.
I lose strength?
You naturally get the appetite when you lift heavy. Have you experienced that? When you do a heavy session, your appetite just goes up.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Yeah, yeah. I do eat quite a lot actually. I know I post pictures of salads and stuff because I don't want to.
You're not telling us about the kebabs, are you,
No,
though?
you're right. There's all sorts of other things I eat that I don't want to put on Facebook because I don't want to scare off all
You don't want to ruin the image.
all the hippies. Yeah, I want this image that I only eat green, green leaves and stuff, which is not true. I eat a lot of other. So okay, now look, my friend Claire, she's doing this thing where it's like 100 squats a day or something. She saw some video of some dude teaching online do 100.
CrossFit? Is she doing CrossFit?
Yeah, something like that. I'm not sure. So is she doing the right thing? Is that going to help her build, like, nice ass and stuff?
Is she doing 100 squat every single day?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I would. That sounds like. I mean, the muscle's not going to get a chance to recover,
Right.
so then the following workouts are going to be diminishing. It doesn't sound like a good strategy to me. It's going to be better than most things because she's going to be. It's going to be a good hormonal release from that from doing squats. Squats are an excellent exercise for getting your anabolic hormones going. But doing it every single day, that's just sounds like she's going to be wearing herself into the ground to
All
me.
right. So it's a bit
Yeah.
overkill,
Bit
perhaps.
overkill, yeah, yeah.
That actually might trigger cortisol, would it?
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah. Doing it every, yeah, yeah. She's probably, I don't know how long she's been doing that.
I don't know. Maybe a couple of weeks, I think.
Yeah. Is she using much weight?
Well, I don't know. I'm not sure really. But
I mean, the best strategy, I mean, I'll give you an example of what I do if I want to get lean. I train about 4 times a week and I train in a bodybuilding style. And my workout will last about 45 minutes, maybe 40 minutes. And that workout will consist of about 20, 25 sets on a body part. So it's just non-stop pumping.
all right.
Okay, so it's pretty intense. You just get to the point where you know that there's just no energy left in the muscle. You've just completely drained it.
Oh, so that's the pump and burn, yeah?
That's the pump, yeah, and burn, yeah. And by the end of that session, you're burning halfway through, but you're just going through that. But you're just literally blowing that muscle up to its absolute maximum.
Wow.
And again, whoever's listening to this is what I'm saying about don't underestimate the amount of work you do if you're doing the right work. That's a 40-minute training session. It's not massively high weights, but the amount of intensity or effort that I put into that is huge.
Right.
Now, from that, the next day, I'm noticeably leaner. Even if I don't train for the next couple of days, the next couple of days I will get leaner and leaner from that one workout.
Really? So, oh,
Yeah.
right. So the pump and burn style of training is better for cutting down on body fat, is it?
Yeah, especially if you do it to, like I'm saying, high intensity. So you're really blasting that muscle. You're really,
Right. Now
yeah.
you really,
Imagine the growth hormone you release. Remember, growth hormone and lactic acid or metabolic acid has a relationship. The more burn, more pump, more burn you have, the more growth hormone you produce.
you're teaching me. Now, this is something I didn't understand. You're really teaching me something. You're clarifying something for me now that I misunderstood. So I thought the heavy strength training was the growth hormone, but actually
It does release growth hormone. Strength training does,
Oh,
but
it does.
the pumping releases such a huge amount, much more.
Yeah. So you just said 25 sets. Now, you don't mean on each exercise. You mean for the whole training session, you'll do different
For the whole
exercises.
training session, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Now, let's just clarify for our listeners what that means. So that's very short rests, a
Yeah,
relatively
about a
light,
minute.
about a
About
minute rest
a
in
minute, yeah.
between sets.
Just
So,
just over a minute, minute 15.
and we're aiming to drain the energy from the muscle, completely deplete it, and that's the burning sensation, is it?
The burning sensation comes where you're contracting the muscle and the fuel supply for the muscle. There's like a process that's going on. There's like a cycling process for the muscle to contract, and that can't keep up with the demands of the contraction. So in the process, there's like a backfiring system that's going and causing acid waste going into the muscle, which is giving you that burning sensation.
Right. Let's just give our listeners an example of the type of reps and sets and the rest. So let's say I was doing like a pec fly machine or something, or just a bench press or whatever. So it might be like what, 10 to 15 reps or something?
You'll do a rep range. I do a rep range of around about 10 to 12 reps.
Okay.
I stick to 10 to 12. And the way I do my repetitions is they stay constant tension. So when you're strength training, you'll lock out and you have a brief rest and you do your next one. When bodybuilding, you're literally pumping like this.
Yeah, because you're wanting to drain the energy out of the muscle. Yeah.
Yeah,
So you don't want to give
yeah,
it any rest. You want to keep draining it and draining it. Is that right?
that's correct. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
correct. Yeah.
I hope Kane's listening to this because he's always nagging me. Don't lock out at the top. But I was thinking if you're going really heavy, then that might be appropriate. But like you just said, if you're pumping, you want to keep
If you're
the
pumping, you don't actually lock out because you need to maintain constant tension on the muscle because you need to drain the energy of the muscle as dramatically as possible. And that brief seconds rest on lockout will slow down the energy draining process. So a typical bodybuilder won't lock out to maintain constant tension. But
right.
if you're strength training, you'll see a strength trainer or powerlifter will go and lock out because they need that rest for maximum strength.
Yeah, to over right. So Kane's a bodybuilder, so he's used to pumping and
Yeah,
keeping the tension on the muscle and
yeah,
draining it.
yeah.
Right. So that's why he does it like that. Okay. So now where are we? So your style is to do 10 to 15 reps, keep the
hmm
tension on the muscle like you
hmm
just said,
hmm
and to get that sharp burning sensation,
Yeah,
drain the energy.
you pick a weight, but you can just feel the muscle working to begin with, and as the sets progress, because the rest time's short, the
Mm.
kind of the burn comes on as the sets progress, and each set will get more and more intense.
Right.
And there's various ways of increasing the intensity of the burn, but it all depends on whether you're a beginner, intermediate, or advanced. But
Yeah.
that's the general idea.
And your rest is going to be around about a minute if you're doing that
About a
style.
minute and a half to a minute. For
Okay.
that's what I generally find is best for me.
Just give us an example. Just say you were pumping, doing a bench press or something. How many sets would you do like that?
Well, a typical chest like pump routine, if I was pumping up, would be 5 sets on bench press.
Mm,
The last set would actually be a strip set,
mm.
just to increase the intensity of the burn. Then I would have a slightly longer rest to go on to the next lot of exercises.
Yeah.
Then I would do incline dumbbells, and I'd start off with dumbbell flies, and then I'd superset that into dumbbell press.
Mm.
Again, just to increase the intensity, increase the burn. Do about 4 sets on that. Supersets, by the way, I like doing 2 sets in one.
Yeah.
Then I would do dips for lower chest and get the front triceps. About 5 sets on that. The last set be a bit of a strip set, but
Yeah.
take some weight off. Again, then cable flies. Do about 5 sets on that. Last set will be a strip set.
Yeah. I really
And
want
that,
to. I really want to describe this to our audience so they know exactly what that we mean because it's very specific. These rest times are very important. So you're choosing a weight where you're going to do about 10 to 15 reps, and
and you
you're
can just feel it to begin with.
to
It's
begin
not
with.
really burning to begin with, but you're just feeling the resistance. And if it's too light, you can go on forever. If it's too heavy, you're struggling to get to 12 to 10 on your first set. You shouldn't be struggling. You should
Right.
just be feeling it.
So it should be okay on the first set. Then you're going to take a rest that's about a minute and a minute and a half, and that is important because we don't want the muscle to regain too much energy.
Too much. You need to recover a bit, but not maximum recovery. Like strength training, you rest for at least 5 minutes. That gives you maximum recovery.
Yeah, because that's a different type of overload. But what we're doing in order to get
It's
this
all about
metabolism,
energy.
yeah. So we're going for the fat burn in the metabolism. So it's a short rest, minute, minute and a half. Then you're going to pump again, and this time it's going to burn a bit more. Then you're going to have another rest, do it again. It's going to burn a bit more, and then you're going to do 4 or 5 sets. And then on the end, you're going to drop the weight down. You see, because it's going to be burning and burning. You can't do any more. You drop the weight down just so you can just squeeze out a few more. So it's really burning, burning.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the style of training that we're talking about here.
Yeah.
That's
It's
the
all about energy. It's
yeah.
all about the muscles struggling to keep up the energy demand. And it's all about draining huge amounts of energy out of the muscle.
So in terms of metabolism, fat loss, that's what we're
That's
gonna.
brilliant training. It
Yeah.
really gets your metabolism going. I'll tell you what else it does. It actually increases the muscle's sensitivity to insulin. Now, because you're going to go on a low insulin diet, insulin is also not only does it store body fat, but it also pushes glycogen in the muscle, and it's also an anabolic hormone as well. So if your insulin levels aren't going to be as high, you're not going to be releasing as much of it. The muscles become more sensitive to the small amount that you do release, so that the muscles do still stay full and still stay anabolic. So it's very good to get you used to a low insulin diet. It really helps your body
Ooh,
adjust to that.
hang
It's
on a
so
second.
beneficial.
Hang on a second. Now I'm confused. Wait a
No,
second.
so, yeah,
Back up.
sorry, I went a
So,
bit deep there, didn't I? Too quick.
just a second. So I thought insulin was bad because it's going to turn blood sugar to fat.
Well, you got to remember, no hormone is bad. It
Okay.
wouldn't be there if it was bad, but
Right.
it's what it does. Now, insulin is a two-edged sword.
Right.
Because you have insulin receptors on the muscle too. And the insulin receptors on the muscle, when insulin comes along and it goes into the muscle then becomes a lot more able to draw in glycogen. And then it also becomes a lot more anabolic. Okay. Now, the side where the muscle is receives the insulin, if that's called insulin sensitivity. So by training and pumping the muscle becomes very, very sensitive to insulin. So just a small amount of insulin will make the muscle very anabolic, just because you've been pumping it.
But what,
All
what do you
right.
mean anabolic? I don't know what that
Anabolic
means.
means building up. Catabolic means breaking down.
Hang on. I still don't understand what you're on about.
Oh, okay. Okay. Um, Anabolic is building up,
Right.
catabolic is breaking down.
Right.
Insulin is an anabolic hormone, so it can build up glycogen in the muscle. It can
Right.
help the muscle repair and become more able to build up, but also it can make fat cells build up.
Right.
Okay. Now, what you're doing, you can have you're going to be lowering your insulin levels. You're going to keep them as low as possible.
Well, that's with the
Okay.
diet, right?
That's with the diet.
By eating.
But
Yeah.
But if you're used to eating high insulin foods
Yeah.
and your muscles are used to a lot of insulin to make them work,
Yeah.
then they become down regulated in their sensitivity. In other words, they need a lot of insulin to become anabolic. They need a lot of insulin to draw glycogen in because that's what they're used to. So if you go on a low carb diet, the muscles are going to be going, well, we haven't got enough insulin to be anabolic. So
Ah.
they find it hard. So
Ah.
by pumping, you increase the muscles sensitivity to
Oh.
insulin. So when you go on a low insulin diet, then the muscles become more sensitive to smaller quantities. So
Ah.
in other words, you make your muscles stay there
Oh.
while you lose body fat. So pumping, not only is it good for growth hormone, not only is it good for burning energy and getting your metabolism going faster, but it's also makes your muscles more sensitive to the very small
Oh.
amount of insulin.
Oh, I see.
So
So then they won't panic so soon, and then they won't
yeah,
switch
they,
into cortisol and.
yeah, less likely to break down. They're more likely to stay there.
Oh, I see. Now I understand. Now I understand.
Yeah. No, it's complicated if you just
Yeah.
it's
Oh,
time.
I see. So in very simple terms, by pumping and burning and doing that style of weight training, that's gonna be better for our
It's going to
metabolism.
preserve your muscle. It's going to burn body fat. It's going to speed up your metabolism. It's going to release growth hormone. It's just you've got to do it.
Now, now let's imagine that you had a bodybuilding show that you needed to prepare for in 2 weeks that you didn't know about until last minute. So, what would you do for the next 2 weeks in order to cut down on body fat and pump up your
I,
muscles for the
I
show?
would be training like that with weights,
Yeah,
probably 4 times a week.
yeah.
Um, Now I'm a natural athlete, so that there is a difference. People that take steroids, they can train more frequently. They can put a lot more demand on their body. It just changes the whole game.
When you say
So
natural, that means you're not using
I
steroids.
don't take steroids, don't
That's
take growth hormone, don't take any synthetic drugs, as it were, or
right. Yeah.
synthetic hormones. I will also do some aggressive cardio.
Hmm.
Aggressive cardio, what I prefer doing are hill sprints, which is where you find a steep hill and you do like a 60-meter all out sprint. And you do that 3, maybe 4 times. And that's similar to pumping with weights, but it's almost a bit more cardiovascular. It's a lot more respiratory. That again gets your testosterone up, it gets your growth hormone up, and it gets your metabolism going, and it's drained energy out of you.
Oh, I
So that
see.
again, in fact, if you do hill sprints properly, then I haven't had a single person that hasn't been shocked at how much body fat they've lost by the next day.
Oh, I see. So that aggressive cardio, very high intensity, that's almost like pumping
Very
and
short
burning
period
your.
of time as well. Short period of time,
Yeah.
because if you start doing like hard work on the body over the longer period of time you do that, the more cortisol you release. So the hill sprints take me 5 minutes to do. And do you see what I mean? So
Right.
there's not enough time for cortisol to really kick in.
So that's like pumping and burning, but your whole body in a way.
You're doing it with your legs,
You're
yeah,
doing
as
it
it
with your
were. Yeah.
legs in a
In
way.
fact, instead, what I do when I'm dieting, every couple of weeks I do a heavy squat session to keep the strength there,
Yeah,
and then in the meantime, I do hill sprints, and
yeah.
that pumps the legs up.
So this is why all these fitness trainers, personal trainers, are always talking about high intensity, short bursts, and
Mm,
rests. 'Cause
mm.
everyone's talking about this, right? Everyone's saying you can't do long cardio sessions because that's yeah,
Yeah, doing the long endurance stuff, you're pushing your body in the opposite direction. Look at a marathon runner or a long distance runner, then look at a sprinter. The sprinter will be ultra lean
yeah,
and muscular.
yeah,
The marathon runner, long distance runner, will actually sometimes have loose, flabby bits around the stomach
yeah,
because they're releasing huge amounts of cortisol. And then also not only looking at their body composition, look at their faces.
yeah,
The long distance runner, because they're stress hormones constantly, they age badly, they age quickly. The
yeah.
sprinter will look young.
So this is why long cardio sessions trying to burn calories is just a bad idea.
It's a very bad idea, very bad idea.
Yeah,
The only time I'd recommend doing a long session to burn body fat would be very low level, so you're not stressing the body. So
yeah,
like for a long walk, and
yeah,
you can pick up the pace. You can go for a nice sort of march or a nice bit of power walk. You
yeah.
could do that all day, and it's not stressful on the body, but it is getting the wheels turning.
So let's hypothetically say the worst thing you could do. Let's say somebody wants to lose fat. The worst thing they could do, number one, is starve themselves and eat less because the body's going to panic. The cortisol is going to destroy the metabolism because the
Yeah.
body's going to go into survival mode. It's going to start breaking down muscle, storing fat. Worst
Mm.
thing. Worst
And
thing.
doing that for a long period of time.
Yeah.
Because the longer you do that, the more leptin levels decrease, the more your metabolism slows down.
Yeah. And then the next worst thing they can do is to try and burn calories by doing a really long cardio session by running and running and running and
Or a
running.
long aerobics session, doing aerobics for an hour,
Yeah.
you're going to release massive amounts of cortisol. Yeah, you're going to feel like you've had a good workout, but it's not efficient. You're
Yeah.
releasing stress hormones
Yeah.
more so than you're releasing anabolic hormones.
So starving and doing that is going to be a catastrophe for the metabolism. It's just totally the opposite of what we want to do. Yeah.
Then there's another strategy I would add into my training, and that is when I go for like I said, like a power walk and you can do that for a long duration because it's so low level,
Yeah.
but that burns body. When your body burns body fat, there's different types of training do it in different ways. Getting your hormones going and getting your metabolism going increases your resting metabolic rate, which means while you're sat down, you're still going to be burning more body fat
Right.
if you've done those types of training. But other things like walking
Yeah.
and like going for a brisk walk, that's going to burn body fat directly.
Yeah.
Not huge quantities, but it is going to burn body fat directly.
Oh, I see. So going for a gentle walk, it will burn calories. It's not going to stress our body. It's not going to
Yeah.
trigger the cortisol. But if we did the weights, then it would,
Uh-huh.
and it would trigger the hormones, and then
Yeah.
it would be burning
Be more
calories.
beneficial, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
if your metabolism's running fast, I mean, before Christmas, I dieted down, and I actually panicked and dieted down too long and too hard, and I can remember going on the treadmill, and I remember thinking, I've got to get this last bit of fat off, and I'm going, and after 20 minutes, I'm thinking my body temperature hasn't risen, I'm not sweating, and I carried on, and I felt terrible. And I still wasn't feeling that hot burning sensation that I was feeling a week earlier when my metabolism was high. But because I'd been dieting for too long, my metabolism had shut down
Oh,
and I wasn't getting the fat burning benefits from the same type of working out.
all right.
You see, if your metabolism's running fast, you know that it's running fast because you'll get hot easily. And so if you go for a brisk walk for 20 minutes or 40 minutes and you're going for a nice little bit of a march and your metabolism's fast, you'll be sweating. It'd be
Oh,
easy, but you'll be hot and you'll feel your temperature rise quickly.
oh,
If your
really?
metabolism's slow, you'll go for that brisk walk and you won't feel any different.
Oh, so, okay. This is news to me. So the actual heat of your body is a reflection of the
Mm,
metabolism working, is it?
mm, mm.
Oh, so if your metabolism's really fast and really high working, then even a little bit of gentle exercise will result in body heat and sweating and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. Another thing that happens to people when they start eating clean, lowering the insulin, training like that, and they do that for a few weeks, is when they eat a meal, especially if it's a carbohydrate-based meal, they feel their temperature rise when they eat it. And that's another sign that your metabolism's going. I know from experience when my metabolism's going faster because I can feel these things in my body. I'll eat a meal, my temperature go whoosh, go straight up. I'll go for a brisk walk and my temperature go whoosh.
Mm. So when a girl's got a nice ass, is that just genetic or is that muscle that they've built?
Well, it depends on the girl, doesn't it? I mean, it really depends. I mean, genetics play a massive role in everything, but it doesn't mean that someone with normal or bad genetics can't have a great looking body. It just means they're going to have to work harder and they're going to have to be a bit more intelligent. Someone with great genetics doesn't have to do much to have that kind
Right.
of body.
But,
So who knows?
I mean, girls want to have nice curves, and so some of them actually want to stay a bit fat, so they got nice curves. But can they lose the fat and put on muscle and have a nice shape
Yeah, I
muscle?
mean, it's interesting because if everybody's perception is different, but what creates shape is muscle. Fat, yes, it's going to create curves, but it's going to create curves in the wrong place. It's going to create a saggy ass.
Yeah.
It's not going to create an uptight per ass. That's going to be muscle and low body fat.
Right. There you
Just
go.
noticing my hand gestures
Yeah,
there.
because otherwise, if people do it wrong, they can end up like a skinny fat person, can't they?
Yeah, but like I said, if they diet hard and they do lots of aerobics and lots of traditional things, they can end up losing a muscle very quickly, and which will lose their shape. But
Yeah.
their body will be preserving the stubborn body fat, which will give them that that's what's called a skinny fat look. And
Yeah, so that's the look.
that's
I mean, no, the girls don't want that look. They don't want the skinny, flabby, fat look. So
girls need to train like the way that they don't think they should train.
this is
And
the thing. Yeah,
yeah,
this is what I wanted to get to. Yeah, go on, go ahead.
and if they have a look on the internet, go on YouTube and have a look at girls training with weights and have a look at their bodies, have a look at what women look like. And again, it's a shame what media has done with this skinny model look. It's unhealthy. I don't find it sexy because it just doesn't seem natural to me. Women and men have evolved through thousands of years of being active. It's only in the last few decades that we've become sedentary, and this sedentary lifestyle has started to create these horrible looking bodies. So
Yeah,
just losing weight alone is not going to make you shapely, fit, sexy looking. It's
yeah,
just going to make you skinny with flabby bits.
yeah. So they need to do the weights to get the muscle shape, and that's what gives the
So
nice tone.
tone that muscle up.
Yeah,
And it's funny because when women start doing, say women listen to this and they're interested and they start doing a typical pumping bodybuilding routine with very light weights and doing what we said, their muscle will tighten up and it will firm up and they will notice that within 2 or 3 weeks. They will lose body fat and they will notice that pretty quickly too. But more often than not, once women start doing this, they go, well, I just want a little bit more shape on my shoulders, or I want a little bit more shape on my tricep. And I go, right, well, now you're going to have to do a little bit of strength training and just build up a bit of strength and then go back to pumping.
yeah,
And I haven't met a woman yet that hasn't wanted to actually move over to do a little bit more strength training, because once they start seeing these
yeah,
changes, they want more changes.
yeah, yeah.
And then it becomes this is what it's all about. It's all about sculpting your body.
Yeah, right. You hear that, girls? You got to lift some weights to get that shape. There, there's a image on Facebook, one of those memes, and it says girls don't do weights because they think they'll look like
Yeah,
this,
yeah,
and
yeah.
it's got a picture of like you said, one of those muscly
Perfect elbows.
women
Yeah.
that's taking loads of steroids and testosterone, and it's never gonna happen. They think they look like that, but actually they end up like you just said, sort of really skinny because they're scared of doing weights. So
I mean,
yeah,
let's take for example you've been training for how long now?
well, about 6 months properly.
About 6 months, and you've been doing things pretty correct. You've been from almost from the beginning. You've been doing things right, so you've got quicker results than most people would get, and you're a man.
Hmm.
Okay. And you've had great advice. You've had great advice. You've done it right from the beginning, and you've built a reasonable amount of muscle. But you haven't turned into Arnold Schwarzenegger in 6 months.
No, no,
Do you know what I mean? You've put
yeah,
on a few pounds of muscle, and you've changed your shape, and you're a man.
yeah.
So imagine a woman doing things right from the beginning. They're not going to put on the same amount of muscle, but they will get similar results in changing shape and losing body fat.
Yeah, because people talk about, women always say tone, body tone. I just want to tone up a little bit.
Mm.
But are they really going to get that from doing a class, or is the class going to be enough, or do they need to get onto the weights?
Like we've said, the typical classes, if you're reducing your calories and you're exercising and you wasn't doing either of those two things before, you're going to lose weight.
Mm.
How much of that is going to be muscle and how much is that going to be fat? You're going to lose muscle and fat, I should imagine it was sort of pretty much proportionally. And how, it depends what you want. What I do for women and that want to get fit and get in shape, I actually post for links to some of the sites on Facebook with fitness women.
Mm.
And I say to them, have a look through and pick physiques that you like.
Yeah.
So I know what you're looking for. And what that does, because women are so used to reading women's magazines and they're so used to seeing women that are skinny,
Yeah.
that's like their perception of what they should look like.
Yeah.
But very often when they start looking at women that train and the women are slim, got less fat on than a skinny woman,
Mm.
but they've built a small amount of muscle, so they've got that beautiful shape and those curves.
Yeah.
Very often, after a little bit of time, their perception starts to change and they go, actually, that is a lot more sexy, isn't it?
Yeah. Right.
I
So
mean, look at Lara Croft,
right.
renowned for being sexy, but she's a very muscular woman.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So nothing wrong with the classes, but some weights as well is really gonna be better, as if they do that as well.
Definitely. If they want to lose fat, they want to get shapely, they want to change their body shape quickly as possible, definitely.
Yeah. That's the moral of the story. Hey. So let's just summarize. Could you just summarize for us just to wrap up?
Man, we've said such a lot, haven't we?
Yeah.
Okay, let me try and
Okay.
quickly do this then.
Okay.
Hormones, losing body fat and getting down to those lower level body fats, and we're talking about levels where you can see a six pack and you can see muscle definition.
Yeah.
You need to do things a bit more intelligently. You need to avoid the hormones insulin. You need to avoid the hormones cortisol. You need to keep your leptin levels high, and you need to keep your fat burning hormones high. And this can be done through manipulating diet, staying on a low GI diet, not doing stuff that's too stressful. And there are other things you can do with diet to kind of keep cortisol at bay and stuff like that. Like, for instance, if I was going to go for a hill sprint, I would take a protein shake and some vitamin C and maybe some HMB beforehand. So that so protein is anti-catabolic, it's anti-stress, kind of keeps cortisol at bay. So that when I do that hill sprint, I'm not going to burn any muscle. Okay, so there are lots of things like that. Then getting the anabolic hormones going, your fat burning hormones, train in such a way so that you get maximum growth hormone, get some testosterone rising too. So that's the idea behind it. Get your metabolism going, get your hormones working for you as opposed to against you.
Hmm.
And that's going to primarily going to be done by doing intense exercise, short duration, but doing it correctly.
Yeah. Now, if people want some coaching from you, you offer coaching via Skype or in person.
I do Skype coaching if they're out of area. I live in Weston-super-Mare, which is just south of Bristol. So yeah, just have a look at my website and contact me.
Yeah, Jada,
Go to my Facebook anyway.
I really appreciate your time. Listen, there's just a couple of questions because you mentioned fat burning hormones, and is that the ones that we already mentioned, or was that something else again?
That was just growth hormone, testosterone.
Oh, I see. I'm with you. You were just
There's also
collectively.
so your thyroid hormone as well, which is a very important, massively important metabolism, fat burning hormone. But that kind of when you start increasing growth hormone and testosterone and that the thyroid hormone tends to go with that as well.
Oh, I see. So you're just referring to them collectively as the.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, what we're talking about here is getting down to low levels, and I'm presuming that the listeners are getting the basics. The basics are health, hydration,
Mm.
keeping processed foods out your diet, eating clean foods, eating
Yeah.
natural foods. Doesn't mean that you don't ever eat cake or you don't ever eat chocolate. It just means you're not having it every day.
Yeah. I said to a friend of mine yesterday, because he was saying he was getting frustrated because he was trying to cut down on fat. And I said, well, fat loss is done in the kitchen, not at the gym. Like, eat cleaner, don't eat less. That's probably not the whole truth because we've
No, that's
discussed
good, quite good advice. Yeah, it's
quite good advice. Yeah, not the whole truth because weight training is important, but I could see what he was doing. I could see he was trying to starve himself. He was doing all this cardio, and like we've already discussed, I could see it was back to front. So my advice was clean up your diet. Don't eat less, just eat better. And So I wasn't far off then.
I mean, once your leptin levels go down, because you've been starving yourself,
Yeah.
your metabolism just virtually grinds to a halt. Like I was telling you on that treadmill. Now,
Yeah.
when I go on a treadmill and I go for 30 minutes, like a power walk, the next day I'm noticeably leaner if my
Really?
metabolism's normal.
Yeah.
Right? That time I was telling you about where I went for 45 minutes, the next day there was no difference. All I'd
Yeah.
done was stress my system because my metabolism was shut down
Because it was
because I've been
already.
dieting too long without a
Yeah.
cheat day.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Oh, right, Jada, that's
It's not
awesome.
about working harder, it's about working smart and hard.
Right. Yeah. Wow. Awesome.
Cool, good. Informative. Do you enjoy that?
Oh, really enjoyed it. Yeah, I learned
Good.
that corrected me on a few things. There was a few misunderstandings I had there. So that was really helpful. I hope it was helpful for our listeners, and I want to encourage people to get in touch with you if they want some personal training via Skype or in person. So
Cool.
yeah, great. Oh, thanks for your time. Any final comments, or are we done?
No, I think that's it, to be
Yeah,
honest.
that's
Yeah,
really helpful. I hope people enjoy it. So,
good.
all right, Jada. Bye for now. Thanks
All
for
right,
your time.
cheers.
What makes the universe so hard to comprehend is that there's nothing to compare it with. Believe in what the universe will provide. 4,000 volumes of metaphysics will not.
Right. Good afternoon, Jada. How are you today?
I'm good, Ben. Thank you very much. And
Oh,
you?
yeah, it's really nice of you to take the time to join us again. And a lot of my listeners and my friends on Facebook are really excited that we're going to be talking today because I've been telling people we're going to focus on fat loss today. Now, the way this started out, a couple of weeks ago, I said, would you do an interview with me and would you teach us about how to lose fat, but also without sacrificing muscle? We want to keep gaining muscle, but we want to cut down so that we can see the muscle definition. And you said that, yeah, that would be great. But since then, a couple of my female friends have been asking me questions. They want to know, they want to lose some fat, but they want a nice ass and nice hips. But you know what girls are like? They're afraid of getting too muscly. They don't want to go near the weights because they don't want to look muscly. But then they don't want to be fat, but then they want to have a nice shape, and a lot of them really don't know how to achieve what they want to achieve. So I was hoping we could cover all these issues today. Is that all right?
Yeah, sure. Okay. Do you want me to start?
Yeah, you can start. Yeah,
Okay.
kick it off.
Right. Okay. Well, the first thing people need to really bear in mind is that losing body fat to the levels which people want to attain, which is very low percentages, so that they can show their muscle definition. To do that, you have to work really hard. Okay, it's like building muscle. You have to work really hard to build muscle. But there's no point, it's not just hard work, it's doing the right hard work. Okay, so for a woman that wants to kind of get rid of that last bit of what would be termed stubborn body fat but really doesn't want to shift, she's going to have to pull out all of the stops when it comes. Worst thing for your health. I mean, what I would recommend for listeners is, we're talking about fat loss, but that's a broad term, because if you're overweight, just cleaning up your diet and starting to exercise, starting to go to the gym is going to cause fat loss. So now we're going to go down to like the more specific people that are already at 15-20% and already reasonably lean but want to go that bit lower. That's when you really have to pull out all of the stops and make sure that you're training correctly. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make right. Let me just recap because I like to clarify in my own mind.
Yeah.
So when we have refined sugars, that spikes the insulin, and the trouble is that'll turn it. That'll take it from the blood and turn it into fat.
Biscuits.
Yeah, don't eat biscuits. So we don't want the sugar because that goes to fat. We don't want to starve ourselves or put ourselves through too much stressful, long workouts because that's going to stress the body. Then cortisol rises, and that's like the opposite of what we want, because that's going to start breaking down muscle, and
that's right.
The body will start to conserve energy and conserve fat, and that's just the opposite. So those are the opposite things of what we want. Is there any other kind of hormones that we don't want?
Yeah. There's another hormone called leptin.
Right.
Okay, and this is produced predominantly by your fat cells. It's like it kind of tells your body when you're losing body fat. So when you go on a diet and you start losing body fat, after about 5, 6, 7 days, your leptin levels go down by half, which then causes the rest of your metabolism to go down.
Oh, hold on a second, you lost me there. Just run that past me again.
All right, there's a hormone called leptin.
Right.
Leptin is responsible for telling your body when you're losing body fat.
Right.
Now remember, when you're losing body fat, you're normally, because of survival and evolution, that's not a good thing. Your body's going to want an amount. If you have one tiny little chocolate, that's a tiny amount of sugar. It's not really going to do much. But if you eat a whole chocolate bar, then it's a large amount, and that's going to cause a problem. But the golden rule is, if you want to lose body fat, you have to keep your diet, the whole diet, low on the GI scale. You can go on the internet, type in GI list, GI guide, and you can get a list of all the foods, and you can start to educate yourself on what's going to spike your insulin and what's going to keep your insulin levels stable.
Yeah, I see.
So that's hormone number one. That hormone, that's a biggie. Right. That one.
So there's more.
Yeah, well, there's cortisol, which is a hormone that stops you from losing body fat, which I mentioned a minute ago.
That's the stress one, right?
Stress hormone, yeah, which is why long duration stuff at medium intensity, although you might be sweating and you might be panting and you might feel like you've had a good workout, you've actually put your body in a lot of stress, and you're going to release a lot of cortisol. And these hormones, they don't just get released, come into your bloodstream and then disappear again. They can stay in your bloodstream for hours. And it all depends on how much you release. So if you eat a meal and you get a huge insulin spike, that insulin is going to be present in your body for quite a long time before it slowly dissipates.
Yeah. So this is the problem when people try and starve themselves and eat less. It actually puts the body into a state of stress, and the cortisol goes up. Is that right?
That's right.
So eating less or starving yourself is the wrong thing to do, because that's going to trigger.
It's the worst thing you can do. I mean, what happens, obviously, if you're going to really drastically cut the amount of food or calories down, and you're going to do some exercise, there's going to be such a deficit that you will lose weight, but you will lose a lot of muscle and you will lose a lot of fat. In the meantime, your metabolism is going to be messed up, and this is why when people they yo-yo, they crash diet and then they yo-yo. It's the woman's to how she trains. So doing the traditional aerobics classes is really not the most efficient way to do it. In fact, it's not really going to do it for her. Right. So a man if a man's been weight training and he's built some strength, and then he switches to like a bodybuilding style training, and then he adds in some aggressive cardio and then adds in some low level cardio, he's hitting the fat burning and the hormone production at different levels, because what most of it is down to is not just restricting calories, but actually getting your hormones working for you as opposed to against you. Because what you must remember is, when you start reducing food down and you start dieting, as people do, to lose fat, it doesn't take very long at all before your body thinks it's starving. And you must remember that your body has evolved through a long period of time, not knowing when its next meal was going to come.
Yeah.
So it loves to store body fat, and it doesn't like to lose it. So if you chuck it back into survival mode, which can happen when you start reducing your calories pretty quickly, say goodbye to losing a lot of body fat naturally.
So I've got a friend, just for an example, she wants to lose a little bit of body fat, and she's doing like 2 hours of running and cardio trying to burn calories. Now, is she doing the right thing?
Well, 2 hours of cardio, after about 45 minutes of cardio, you're going to start releasing cortisol. Cortisol is one of those hormones that when you're dieting, you want to try and lower as opposed to raise. And so it's almost like her body's going into like a stress survival mode. So cortisol is going to rise pretty high. What cortisol is going to do, that's basically going to put a stop on fat loss.
Right, so that's not going to be effective.
It's not effective,
Now,
no.
now, just now, you mentioned triggering the hormones and stuff that's going to trigger the metabolism to make us burn fat. So just expand on that, if you don't mind.
Okay, it's a combination of getting your fat burning hormones going and the hormones that actually stop fat from stop you from losing fat, lowering those. The main one that most people probably know about is insulin. So when insulin is present, you're not going to lose body fat. Your body's not going to use body fat for fuel. Now, this is where the low GI diet comes in. And it's called the low GI diet, but really, if you want to lose body fat and if you want to be healthy, your diet should be low GI anyway. Do you want me to explain what that means, basically?
Yeah.
Okay, food, or specifically carbohydrates, when they enter the body, they get broken down at a certain speed, at a certain rate. The quicker they get broken down, and the more simple the sugars in them, the more blood sugar rises and the quicker it rises, okay? In response to blood sugar rising, your body increases insulin. Insulin's job is to get that blood sugar and get it out of the blood. So it's only got several places it can go. It can go into your liver, it can go into your muscle stores if you've drained your muscles and you've used your muscles, or it can go into body fat. Okay, but in the meantime, while insulin is present in the blood, you're not going to be using any body fat for fuel because it's just going to stop that mechanism. It's like the opposite direction. So by eating foods that don't cause a large increase in insulin, you're then in a much better position to give yourself a chance to start losing body fat. Does that make sense?
Yeah, hang on. Let me just get this clear in my mind. So if we're eating sugary, refined carbohydrates like, chocolate and stuff, that's going to spike the insulin, and the body's going to store that as fat. So sugar turns straight to fat.
Well, sugar can turn to fat very quickly, and it obviously depends on the